I came back to my childhood home just a week ago. I thought it would be soothing to relax and catch up with old friends. The small coastal town looked like it always had, but something felt different. The air was chilly. The beach was nearby, but I felt uneasy walking there during the day. On my first night back, I was finally ready to sleep. I shut the windows and turned off the lights. It was quiet. Then I heard it. A long, drawn-out laugh coming from the beach. I thought maybe it was just a child playing late at night. Still, my heart raced. It felt wrong. I went to the window but saw nothing. I tried going back to sleep, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The next morning, I convinced myself it was just a leftover summer vibe. Over the next few days, I started hearing that laughter more often. It always seemed to come at dusk when the shadows grew long. I saw strange shapes near the water, but they never stayed still enough for me to see what they were. Every single time, a chill ran through me. The laughter danced around in my head but faded before I could find the source. I reconnected with a couple of friends who still lived there. They seemed happy to see me at first, but their faces changed as I asked about the laughter and the shadows. Their expressions shifted, something like fear crossed their faces. They quickly changed the subject. I could feel something wasn't right. One afternoon, I sat on the beach. I watched the waves crash. I thought about the last time I had been here as a kid. Everything was different now. I picked up my phone and searched for old news. That's when I found out about a mysterious incident from our childhood. Some whispered that a child had gone missing, but people never agreed on what really happened. I felt a knot in my stomach. That evening, the laughter came again, closer this time. It mixed with the waves, and I stepped onto the sand, feeling uneasy. I called out, "Hello?" But silence answered back. I felt cold, my whole body tense. What if there was more to the story? As I turned to leave, a figure caught my eye. It stood in the water. My heart raced. The laugh broke through the salt air again. I squinted, trying to see better. Maybe it was just a kid. I took a step forward, but the figure vanished like it never existed. Then, a whisper reached my ear, "Come play with us." I looked around, but nobody was there. Dread washed over me. I couldn't leave fast enough. The laughter echoed again, loud and haunting. I stumbled back, my heart pounding. I had to get out of there. I still think about that summer. What was supposed to be a trip down memory lane became a nightmare I couldn't escape. I just wish I understood what really happened. The laughter still lingers in my mind. I didn't sleep much that night. I tossed and turned, haunted by the laughter and the whisper. I kept seeing the figure in my mind, standing just beyond the surf, watching me. Morning felt like an eternity, but the sun finally rose, dragging me into its light, though it did little to chase away the shadows in my mind. I decided to visit Mrs. Henderson, an elderly woman who had lived in the town forever. She had seen everything. If anyone knew what happened back then, it might be her. I drove to her house, hoping my nerves would settle. The quiet streets seemed tainted, even the birds felt distant. As I approached her door, I noticed a faded picture hanging on the wall behind her porch. It showed a group of children, laughing and playing at the beach from decades ago. My breath caught. I recognized one of the kids. It was Colin, the boy who had gone missing. I knocked, keeping my fingers crossed that she could give me answers. Mrs. Henderson opened the door slowly, a wary look crossed her face. "Oh, it's you. What can I do for you?" Her voice trembled slightly, and it sent a shiver down my spine. I stepped inside and braced myself. I wanted to know more about what happened to Colin. I've been hearing strange things since I returned. Her expression darkened. Best to leave the past alone. Some things shouldn't be disturbed. I pressed on, urgency bubbling inside me. But I need to understand. I keep hearing laughter. Not all laughter is harmless, she said, her eyes darting away from mine. You should go. It's not safe down there. I was frustrated. How could she dismiss me like this? Please, what do you know? Mrs. Henderson hesitated, glancing outside as if expecting something to appear. They say he is still out there, she whispered finally. Looking for friends. A chill ran through me. I didn't want to consider the implications of her words, but I had to ask. Who else? Those who played too close to the water after dark, she said, her voice barely a whisper. The darkness calls them. I backed away, confusion and fear mingling in my gut. I managed to murmur a thank you and left. I had to digest what she said, but I also wanted to confront the situation. I felt drawn back to the beach. Once back at my house, I paced the living room. I couldn't ignore what was happening any longer. As night crept in, I made my decision. I grabbed a flashlight and headed towards the shore, determined to face whatever was out there. The beach was eerily quiet, but I felt eyes on me. I called out again, hello? Nothing. The waves seemed louder in the stillness. Then, a distant laugh broke the silence, a real sound echoing through the night. It was a sound I couldn't ignore. Then everything went dark. I stumbled forward, disoriented in the sudden darkness. My flashlight flickered. Panic swelled as I fought to steady my breath. How could everything turn so black so quickly? I pressed the button again. A weak beam pushed through the void, but shadows danced just beyond its grasp. That's when I saw it, a figure, standing at the water's edge. My heart raced. It looked too familiar, too real, and yet unearthly. I hesitated, straining to make sense of what I saw. The laughter swirled around me again, now echoing like a haunting chorus. A chill slithered down my spine. Colin? I called, unsure if I wanted an answer. Is that you? The figure tilted its head, and for a fleeting moment, I swore it smiled at me. Then, like smoke, it vanished, swallowed by the waves. I stumbled back, the sand giving way beneath my feet. Swallowing hard, I fought the urge to run. Was it merely my mind playing tricks, or had I really seen him? I had to understand what was happening, what had happened to Colin, and quickly. Gathering my courage, I moved closer to the surf, keeping my flashlight steady. Show yourself. I shouted, my voice shattering the night's silence. The air felt charged, as if something were waiting for me. Suddenly, the sound of laughter returned, louder and more insistent. It wrapped around me, pulling me toward the water. I didn't want to go. A shiver ran through me, and a part of me screamed to escape. But another part, the one yearning for answers, pushed me forward. Then, a glimmer caught my eye. Just below the surface, something shimmered, beckoning me. I crouched down, the cold waves lapping at my ankles. Was it a toy? I leaned closer, my mind racing through the possibilities. I took a deep breath and reached into the water. My fingers grazed something hard, something unmistakably familiar. I pulled it up. It was a small wooden boat, worn and painted a faded blue, with scratches and a name scrawled on its side. The Sea Star. My heart stopped. I remembered this from old stories, the ones Mrs. Henderson used to tell about the children who played at the beach. As I turned the boat over in my hands, I felt a weight settle over me. I wasn't just holding a relic. I was holding a piece of a life lost, one that still had ties to this place. That realization pulled me deeper into the night. I needed to know why Colin's laughter haunted me. I needed to confront whatever was lingering out there. Colin. I yelled again, louder this time. I'm here. What happened? What do you want? The water began to churn, and the wind picked up, swirling around me. In that moment, I felt eyes on me again, watching, waiting. The laughter faded into a whisper, and I could almost make out words mingled with the waves. Then I heard a voice, soft but urgent. "Help us." Fear coursed through my veins as I stood there, the boat trembling in my hands. Who else was out there? And how could I help them? Before I could process it any further, a sharp pain pierced my wrist. I looked down to see a sudden flash of movement in the water, something darting just out of sight, and fear turned to dread. I backed away, heart racing. Now, I wasn't sure what was lurking in the darkness or what would reach for me next. I stumbled back, feeling my heart hammer against my ribcage. The pain in my wrist throbbed with each frantic breath, urging me to retreat. But I couldn't just leave. Not now. The wooden boat felt heavy in my grasp, the name the Sea Star echoing deep within me. Whatever had happened was intricately tied to this moment. Help us, the voice whispered again, clearer this time, laced with desperation. It tugged at something deep inside me, like a thread woven with sorrow. There was no rational explanation for what I was experiencing. I wanted to scream, to run, to bury myself under the safety of covers. But the urge to find answers rooted me to the spot. A quiet rippling caught my attention. I shifted my flashlight along the surface of the water. It felt alive, thrumming with energy. "Colin. Are you there?" My voice broke on the last syllable, but I pressed on. "If you want to talk, please, I want to help." The laughter returned, now sharp and piercing. I clutched the boat tighter, unwilling to let it slip away as spectral figures flitted just out of view. Shadows twisted beneath the waves, and my skin crawled with the realization that I was not alone. Something was still lurking out there. I took a step closer to the water, the cold creeping up my legs. "Please. Just tell me what to do." At that moment, the water surged toward me, pulling back in a sudden crash, then breaking around my feet. I stumbled, bracing myself against the wooden boat I held. The voice came again, clearer but intermingled with a faint cry. "Help us find him." Panic twisted in my chest. "Find who?" I shouted, but the waters roiled in response. They disclosed little, but the urgent plea echoed endlessly. My gaze darted back and forth, uncertain of where to direct my attention. Then something caught my eye near the edge of the surf. A small figure, barely noticeable against the dark sand. My heart raced. "Colin?" I dared to hope. I squinted and moved in closer, the flashlight beam revealing only blankness. There, just beyond my reach, small footprints appeared, leading away from the water. "Please, no," I muttered under my breath. The footprints were too small, too innocent. They led straight into the darkness of the beach and disappeared beneath a boardwalk jutting out to the ocean. As adrenaline surged, I instinctively began following the tracks. Each step felt like an echo of the laughter, ever present and haunting. The air thickened with a sense of urgency as I reached the edge of the boardwalk. Just ahead, where the dim light faded, I could hear the laughter morphing into clear, painful sobs. I swallowed hard. What had I stumbled into? As I stepped onto the creaking boards, a wave of foreboding washed over me. Then, a rush of air billowed behind me, snatching at my clothes and hair. I turned, flashlight beam flickering as I suddenly felt that familiar, icy presence close at hand. "Who's there?" I demanded, holding the flashlight steady, knowing full well that I might not want to face whatever lurked in the shadows. Just as my voice landed in the stillness, an echoing laugh erupted, slicing through my thoughts. In the distance, a figure stood on the water's edge again, illuminated for a brief second before vanishing into the dark. I felt the beach shift beneath my feet, the ground now unstable as my heart raced. Whatever was following me, whatever voice had called out, was shifting closer. "Wait!" I shouted, not ready to let whatever had taken Colin drift away again. I strained my eyes against the darkness, trying to catch a glimpse of the figure. My heart raced. It felt like time was standing still, hanging on the edge of a knife. The air deepened around me, thick with unspoken fears. "Colin!" I shouted again, my voice cracking. But quiet returned, swallowing my call whole. The sobs continued echoing from the shadows ahead, pulling me deeper, but caution flickered like the dying beam of my flashlight. I stepped hesitantly toward the sound, each creak of the boardwalk beneath me felt like an impending verdict. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching. The hair on my arms stood on end as the ocean whispered secrets just beyond the darkness. I moved forward, catching sight of what looked like a worn piece of cloth caught between the boards. When I reached for it, adrenaline surged through me. My fingers brushed against the fabric, and it was cold-drenched and heavy. I pulled it free, a little boy's t-shirt, faded blue with a cartoon turtle on it. Colin's t-shirt. "No, no, no," I murmured, my breath hitching. It felt too real, too heavy in my hands. I stumbled back, panic rising again. The laughter morphed into a chorus of mocking voices, circling around me like a school of fish. "Help us find him," they hissed, slipping in and out of the night, making it hard to tell where one voice ended and the others began. Instinctively, I clutched the t-shirt like a lifeline, something solid to anchor me amid the chaos. I looked back over my shoulder toward the water, hoping to catch a glimpse of that figure again. That fleeting specter felt like a beacon, but now it was just out of reach, lost to the shadows. Then, abruptly, the laughter stopped. A sudden silence fell over the beach, heavy and oppressive. I took a cautious step back toward the water, my flashlight sweeping across the waves. Every ounce of logic screamed at me to run, to turn around and forget this night. But the urgency of those pleas wouldn't let me. Suddenly, the figure reappeared, standing motionless at the surf's edge. I froze. This time, I could see it clearly enough to make out the childlike features soft, with matted hair clinging to a pale face. "Help me," the figure whispered, its mouth moving almost silently as if the words were smothered by the ocean. My breath hitched as the realization hit me, this wasn't just any lost child. This was Colin. His ghostly form shimmered in the darkness, blending seamlessly with the tide. I fought instinctual dread and took a step forward, the flashlight trembling in my hand. "Colin!" I shouted, my voice stronger this time. "Where are you? What happened?" Before he could reply, the water surged unpredictably, crashing hard against the shore, sending a spray of salt water up over my feet. I felt the temperature drop further, a cold wind whooshing past me. When I blinked, Colin's figure flickered like a candle in the wind, almost gone. "Find me," he cried with a voice so faint I almost didn't hear it. "You need to," but just then, everything went dark. The flashlight flickered out. I was plunged into pitch blackness, the laughter returning, haunting and relentless. My heart raced wildly in my chest, echoing in the silence as I fumbled to turn the light back on. But what I found in that instant of darkness was even worse. Something moved behind me on the boardwalk, something wet and whispering. I spun around just in time to see a glimmer of something emerging from the shadows. A long, pale hand reached out toward me with claw-like fingers, and I couldn't help but scream. I stumbled back, heart pounding in my ears. The air thickened with tension, my flashlight still dead in my hand. I turned to run, but my foot caught on the edge of a loose board, sending me sprawling onto the damp wood. I scrambled to my feet, breathless and shaking, half expecting to feel the claw-like fingers wrap around my ankle. "Colin!" I shouted again, desperately trying to bite back my fear. I needed to find him even if he was only a shadow now. The chill of the ocean breeze chilled my sweat-slicked skin, but I hardly noticed. Panic surged, I couldn't leave without knowing what happened to him. I regained my footing, feeling the smooth, wet wood beneath my fingers. The world around me pulsed with unsettling sounds. Waves crashed rhythmically, the night felt alive with whispers that sent chills across my back. I forced myself to focus, to breathe. Please. I yelled into the darkness, hoping my voice could reach him. Where are you? Then, I remembered the t-shirt, still clutched in my hand. I held it out, hoping it tethered me to him. Colin. I found your shirt. A pause followed, heavy and thick. I squinted into the gloom, willing my eyes to adjust. And then, from the corner of my vision, I saw something move. No, not something, a group of figures, translucent shapes standing in the shallows, barely visible in the moonlight. They faced me, their mouths moving in a silent chant around Colin's name. I blinked hard, wishing they would disappear, but they held their ground. The figures danced toward me, drawn by my light, and my heart dropped. Their faces were pale and distorted, like a nightmare made real, a haunting echo of lost souls. The realization hit me like a punch. These weren't just wisps of light, they were lost children, just like Colin, trapped in this in-between. Help us, the rhythm of their voices rose and fell, melding with the sound of the ocean. Find us. I stumbled back, shaken, wrestling with the urge to flee. They weren't here to hurt me, I reminded myself. They were seekers, just like me. But then where was Colin? The knot in my stomach tightened. I had to stay strong. I couldn't turn away. Colin. I shouted again, my voice cracking under the weight of my fear. Tell me where to find you. One figure broke away from the group, moving toward me, a girl with dark brown hair and tear-streaked cheeks. He's drowning, she whispered, her voice thin as air. In the dark. My heart plummeted. Drowning? I felt sick. What do you mean? I pressed, urgency spilling from my heart. The boy I sought was slipping deeper into whatever shadows lingered beyond my sight. But before she could answer, the water surged forward again, crashing against the boardwalk, spraying salty droplets on my face. The cold surprised me, knocking the breath from my lungs. I clenched the t-shirt harder, feeling the weight of those words settle in my chest. Drowning. No. Then I saw it, the water shifting, dark shapes moving, pulling away. I blinked, squinting to see past the waves. In that flash of clarity, I spotted a dark spot beneath the surface, and dread filled my veins. It coiled like a serpent, shifting and gliding. Suddenly, everything felt more urgent. Colin. I screamed, my voice raw. Where are you? But instead of a reply, panic surged. The water churned, bubbling with a malevolent energy, and I could only watch helplessly. The shadows began to rise, propelling toward me, twisted and monstrous. The urgency of a sudden wave came crashing over me, swallowing the air from my lungs. I realized I was no longer safe. As I turned to run, something reached up from the depths of the water, pulling me back. I felt cold fingers grasp my ankle. Then everything went black once more. I gasped for air as I broke the surface, limbs thrashing in a panic. Cold water surrounded me, pulling at my clothes, dragging me under. I fought against it, desperately trying to keep my head above the swelling tide. My heart raced. I couldn't let the water win, not now. I kicked violently, forcing myself to swim back to the surface. The salty taste burned my throat, but instinct drove me. My eyes darted around, searching for anything familiar through the murky depths. I couldn't see the shadows anymore, but I felt their presence, thick as fog. Colin. I screamed, my voice lost to the waves. I coughed, sputtering, my lungs screaming for oxygen. The chill of the ocean bit into my skin, and I realized the danger was more real than I ever imagined. I wasn't just looking for Colin, I was fighting for my own life. Suddenly, I felt a tug at my waist, a pull that sent me spiraling. I turned to see a pale hand reaching for me, fingers outstretched, eyes pleading. It was the girl from before, but her face twisted with urgency. Come. She said, voice barely a whisper against the roar of the sea. I could tell she was trying to lead me somewhere. Without thinking, I reached for her, but just as our fingers brushed, a wave crashed over us, separating us again. I felt the cold grip of desperation. "No!" I shouted, but the roaring water drowned me out. I frantically swam, my heart thundering in my chest. I fought against the current, desperately searching for a break in the dark waters, a way out, but the shadows were relentless. Just as I felt myself start to sink, I spotted light above, moonlight breaking through the waves. By sheer will, I pushed towards it, clawing my way through the water. Finally, my head broke the surface, and I gasped for air, lungs burning. The figures loomed back at me, their chant echoing in my mind, haunting yet persistent. "He is drowning in the dark," they repeated, their voices laced with something like empathy, but the urgency remained. Without waiting, I spun around, focusing on the darkness where I had last seen Colin's silhouette. I had to find him, had to pull him from the abyss. Every fiber of my being urged me to move, but fear curled tight in my stomach. What if it was a trap? The water surged again, foaming with angry shadows. "Colin!" I cried, scanning the depths. "Can you hear me?" Then, just beneath the surface, I saw him, a dark figure, eyes closed, limbs limp, sinking slowly. My breath caught. "No, no, no!" I shouted, panic clawing at my throat. I dived into the water, heart pounding harder than ever. I reached out, feeling the cold currents tug at my body. As I got closer, I grabbed his arm. The sensation shocked me, he felt so lifeless, so heavy. I pulled with all my strength, dragging him upward. The world around me dimmed, the weight of both our struggles threatening to pull me under again. Finally, I broke through, gasping, my world a whirl of desperation. But before I could celebrate my small victory, a chilling presence circled us, and the whispers intensified. "You shouldn't have come," they chanted. The waves crashed harder as if the ocean was angry. And then, I felt the pull again, stronger, deeper, insatiable. I looked into Colin's face, fear gripped me. That's when I saw it, a dark shape rising beneath us, a monster from the depths, ready to claim what it thought was its. The darkness moved with a menacing speed, swirling like a storm. Panic pinned me down. I had to get Colin to safety, but the shadows crept closer, intent on dragging us back into their dark lair. "Colin! Wake up!" I shouted, shaking him, but his body felt like a rag doll. The icy water burned my hands as I clutched his arm. I kicked hard against the water, pulling him closer to me. The moonlight shimmered poorly on the waves, offering me a dim path to follow. I swam with everything I had, muscles screaming, heart racing. But the tug from below was relentless, and panic clawed at my throat. I couldn't lose him. I had already lost too much. "Help!" I called, searching for the girl who had appeared before. I needed her guidance, her strength. Then, above the crashing waves, I thought I heard her voice, faint but insistent. "Swim toward the light." I didn't hesitate. I turned, focusing on the sliver of hope glowing in the distance. I swam harder than ever, feeling the resistance of the water against my body. I kept looking at Colin, willing him to respond, wishing for some sign that he was still with me. But his eyes remained shut, his breathing non-existent. The waves surged around us, and the dark shape was no longer hidden. I glanced back and felt a jolt of terror. Jagged tentacles seemed to stretch from the abyss, their ends glistening with a sickly sheen. I desperately tried not to think about what would happen if they found us. "Hold on, Colin, please hold on." I gasped, pulling him toward the light. I felt something brush against my leg, a soft, slippery touch. A chill shot up my spine, and I kicked harder, pushing Colin ahead of me, my arms burning from exhaustion. The whispers intensified, drowning out my thoughts. "He belongs to us," they echoed, a cruel melody that wrapped around my mind. Just as I thought the whispers couldn't get worse, I heard Colin's name among them, mixed with chilling laughter. I screamed into the night, no. The panic surged through me, a tidal wave threatening to crash. I wrapped my arms around Colin, clinging to him, fighting desperately against the overwhelming force that sought to reclaim what it thought was its own. Then I felt the ground beneath me giving way. I had lost sight of the surface, and the shadows below were seizing their chance. I tightened my grip on Colin as an insatiable force dragged him from my hands. I swirled around, kicking, clawing my way back to the surface, my heart hammering in my chest. Whatever that thing was, it was coming for us. The weight of the water pulled me down, and I couldn't tell which way was up. My lungs screamed for air, my body felt heavy, and the darkness rushed in, blinding me. I had to focus. I felt for Colin again, but he was gone. I forced myself to remember the light and pushed against the current, breaking through the surface one last time. I gasped desperately, treading water. Colin! I cried, panic bubbling in my chest. But the ocean roared back with a sound that felt alive, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. I was alone now, adrift in a monstrous sea. And then, just as I thought I would drown in despair, I saw something moving under the water. A flash of pale skin amidst the darkness. My heart raced. What if it was her? What if she was here to save us? But as I got closer, the realization chilled me to the bone. No, it can't be, it wasn't just Colin sinking anymore. A dozen shadowy figures surged around me, grasping and pulling, and I knew, I had awakened something unfathomable. As if in a nightmare, the dark figures closed in around me. The water churned violently, their wet hands reaching, pulling me down. I wanted to scream, but the words caught in my throat as the shadows twisted and writhed, a chorus of chilling whispers filling the air. Join us, join him, they seemed to chant. I fought against the tide, kicking desperately. I had to break free, to find Colin. I couldn't let him slip away too. But my limbs felt heavy, as if the shadows were dragging me back into their depths. I gasped for air, and cold water rushed into my lungs. Panic clawed at my insides. Then, in the chaos, my hand brushed against something solid. A ledge? A rock? My heart raced. I seized it, pulling myself toward it with all my remaining strength. I glanced back, searching the murky depths for any sign of Colin. The figures hovered, their dark shapes blending in and out of my vision like thoughts just out of reach. The ledge was rough and jagged under my fingers, but it felt like salvation. I couldn't tell how deep the water was behind me, and for a moment, my instincts screamed at me to let go, to abandon my hold and swim toward the light again. But if I did, what awaited me? I blinked against the salty water in my eyes, desperately wishing for another glimpse of the pale skin, something that would tell me I wasn't facing this darkness alone. And then I saw it, a flicker of movement at the edge of my vision. My heart leaped. I pushed myself up, half crawling, half swimming to the ledge. As I reached the top and pulled myself out of the water, I turned back just in time to see one of the figures break the surface. Its face was masked in shadows, but the eyes glowed a sickly green. They locked onto me, and I felt my blood run cold. "He-s ours," it hissed, the voice crawling back to me like a serpent. "No!" I screamed, scrambling away from the water. I had to think. I needed a plan. I turned my back to the edge, my eyes scanning the dark shoreline. It was strewn with sharp rocks, pieces of driftwood, and tangled seaweed. I could feel the breath of the figures still lingering, their hunger palpable in the air. They wanted me back. They wanted Colin back. Just as I gathered the strength to move, I heard a voice distinct from the whispers, piercing through the haze. "This way." A figure stood on the shore, illuminated by the moonlight. It was a girl, the same one I had seen before. I felt a surge of hope, but also confusion. Could I trust her? "Come on," she urged, reaching out toward me. "They're coming." I shot a glance back at the water, the shadowy figures beginning to glide closer, a mass of darkness eager to reclaim what they had lost. Without thinking, my feet were on the move, driven by something primal, a need to survive. I sprinted toward the girl, praying she wouldn't vanish like a mirage. But as I ran, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had stepped into a game far more sinister than I could understand. Why did she want to help? What was it that those shadows wanted from us? The questions spiraled in my mind, but I had no time to answer them. And then, just as I reached her, everything went dark. The ground beneath my feet gave way, and I plunged into another world entirely. I braced myself for impact, but it never came. Instead, I found myself suspended, surrounded by a vast expanse of darkness, the voices roaring louder in my ears. I don't understand. I cried out, adrenaline surging through my veins. But the only response was silence, followed by a chilling echo of laughter. And I knew, deep down, I had stepped into something I wasn't ready for. What awaited me here? I awoke gasping, the ocean air filling my lungs as I lay sprawled on the cold, damp sand. The world around me was eerily quiet. I blinked against the bright moonlight, fully unsure if I was dreaming or if the nightmare had ended. Blinking furiously, I pushed myself upright, scanning the shoreline for any vestige of Colin or the spectral figures that had once threatened to pull me under. The beach was empty. No sign of the shadowy figures, no laughter lingering in the air. Just the gentle lap of the waves against the shore and the haunting memories that swirled in my mind like leaves caught in a gust of wind. Colin! I shouted, my voice cracking. Silence swallowed my call, amplifying the emptiness around me. I staggered to my feet, searching the horizon for any glimmer of hope. The water sparkled under the moonlight, but it felt less like tranquility and more like a trap. I looked down to see the t-shirt still clutched in my hand, the fabric damp and heavy. I remembered the girl's frantic cry urging me to follow her, but the shadows were closing in. Had they truly gone? I took a shaky step back toward the water, feeling the cool waves kiss my ankles. Had they moved on, or were they simply waiting? After forcing myself to breathe, I turned to the boardwalk that loomed behind me. Dark and foreboding, it felt like a bridge between worlds, the ordinary and the unimaginable. As I approached, I felt a whisper of cool wind that sent shivers down my spine. Something was different about the air now, as if the night held its breath, eager to expose deeper truths. "Mister, are you okay?" A voice broke through the stillness, and I whipped around to see a small girl standing just a few feet away. I blinked, still dazed. She appeared to be no older than 10. Her hair was dark and frizzy, tangled by the wind, and she wore a faded blue play shirt that looked oddly familiar. My stomach twisted. Colin? I felt hope latch onto my heart, but the moment hung heavy with uncertainty. The girl's eyes darted nervously to the waves, then back to me. "You really shouldn't be here," she said, her voice tinged with worry. "You don't know what's out there." "What do you mean?" "I have to find Colin." My voice wavered, pushing against the pull of despair hanging just beneath the surface of my thoughts. Her gaze softened, and she took a step closer. "Colin's not lost," she whispered. "He's looking for us. Just like you." The word sent a chill down my spine. It felt like a veiled warning, but I couldn't shake the sense of urgency that coursed through me. "What do you mean, looking for us? Who are you?" Her expression darkened. "You're not safe here. When the tide comes in, it'll call." "Call? Call for what?" I pressed, half afraid to hear the answer. But before she could respond, an ominous rumble rippled through the ground beneath our feet, and the waves began to swell. "It's too late," she murmured. With that, she turned and fled down the beach, her laughter echoing in the wind as she vanished into the darkness. I stood frozen, torn between the instinct to follow and the bone-deep knowledge that danger lurked at every turn. With no other choice, I braced myself against the rising tide. "Colin." I screamed again, desperation pouring through me. The water surged forward, crashing against the shoreline, each wave pulling me closer to the edge of an abyss. Shadows danced in the surf, beckoning me forward, and for a moment, I felt the weight of my own fear trickling away. And then, I heard it, the familiar unearthly laughter that had haunted my nights. It echoed in my mind and seeped into my soul. I plunged forward, compelled to take one more step into the surf, determined to confront the sounds that called to me. But just before I reached the water's edge, something flickered at the corner of my eye, a figure dancing in the moonlight. I squinted against the brightness, breathless as the silhouette morphed from shadow to flesh and bone. "Colin?" I whispered, heart pounding. The apparition hesitated, then began to fade into the darkness. Panic clawed at my throat as I dashed forward. Fear clawing at my insides. But when I reached the water, it was gone, leaving only the echoes of laughter and whispers. I swayed on my feet, my chest tight. Was it a trick? Was Colin doomed to roam the waters while I stood helplessly at the shore? Just then, another wave crashed down, colder than the ones before, sending shivers through my limbs. I hesitated but felt the pull washing over me, the tide conspiring to envelop me again. Slowly, yet resolutely, I stepped back, despite everything urging me to dive under again to join him. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right, that whatever I faced might consume me if I let myself drown in the darkness. Breath trembling, I took a step back from the crashing waves. I may never know the secrets that bound us all together, the children lost to the surf, the shadows waiting patiently. But I could try to escape the night, weaving back to the warmth of life, and my memories of who Colin had once been. There were answers swirling in the depths and questions too heavy to carry. Perhaps the laughter would play in my mind long after I left, but what choice did I have? With one last look toward the wavering surf, I turned my back to the sea and ran, eager to reclaim my life, even as I felt the laughter echo behind me, lingering like the shadows that refused to be forgotten. And as I stepped onto solid ground, grass beneath my feet and the world unfolding around me, I couldn't shake the lingering sensation of being watched. The beach remained shrouded in mystery, between truth and tales. Maybe the darkness beneath the waves wasn't entirely human after all. I moved on, knowing I might never return, but with a lingering question: would I be able to move forward while the shadows of the past danced just beyond the corner of my eye?